So I guess the next area we need to start talking about is homelessness, and how do we classify homelessness, which is very important. St. Vincent Paul's Society says a lot about homelessness. When we think of homeless, most people think or refer to what we refer to as primary homelessness. So primary homelessness is obviously those who are doing it tough. They're sleeping on the streets, improvised dwellings. They might sleep underneath overpasses or in the streets, in doorways, that sort of stuff. When we think homelessness, that's what we also think. However, there's two other types of homelessness, secondary and tertiary. Primarily, you'll be dealing with secondary homelessness, so frequently moving from one temporary shelter to another, refugees, couch surfing, but also housing commission fits under this area here. Finally, there is also tertiary homelessness, and that's accommodation below the minimum community standards. Okay, boarding houses, caravan parks, perhaps someone's renting out at an absurdly high amount of rent, a property that doesn't meet health and community standards for the people. But once again, it's a form of homelessness. Ultimately, homelessness refers to someone who's been out, who does not have somewhere to live. So all these types of homelessness you may come across, but we primarily deal with a secondary homelessness in our situation. So then the question becomes, why does homelessness happen? What are some causes of homelessness in Australia? And the leading cause of homelessness in Australia is domestic violence, which is quite scary to think about, that more people feel safe living on the streets or even taking their children onto the streets to flee an unsafe house, which is quite scary. But we should also recognise that over the past 10 years, there's been a steady increase in the cost of living, and that's also pushed a lot of people into homelessness as well. In fact, the fastest growing group of people who experience homelessness is women aged 55 years or older, and that's increased 31% in just 5 years. Just some other statistics to talk about as well that might be interesting. As of the last census night, nearly 1 in 200 people experienced homelessness on that census night. Since 2006, there's been a steady increase of homelessness, and it's now sitting around 125,000 people living on the streets, 35,000 in New South Wales alone. 38% of our homeless population are under 25 years old, and 14% of all homeless people on the street are 12 years old or under. That's a very high statistic for children. 16% are aged 55 or older, and as I said before, that the fastest growing group are women in that category. 56% of all people on the streets are men, but the fastest growing group are women aged 55 or over. Just to continue, I should also acknowledge that 39% of people on the streets suffer from some sort of mental illness. That's more than 1 in 3 on the street. And while only making up approximately 3% of Australian population, Indigenous Australians make up about 25% of the homeless population.